Calling this special city council meeting to order on Wednesday, February 26, 2025. Invocation will be led by Councilwoman Scott, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilmember Crosby. Can we please stand?
Let us repeat the Lord's Prayer. Our Father,
Which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive those who trespass against us, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman Scott. Thank you, Councilmember Crosby. Madam Clerk, can you please poll the city council members?
Mayor Yamika Robinson.
Present.
Councilmember Nicole Singletary. Councilmember Wilhelmina Scott.
here.
Councilmember Melissa Askins. Present. Mayor Pro Tem Demonica Cooper. Present. Councilmember Sandra Fleming Crosby. Present. And Councilmember Jason Brown. Present. Mayor Robinson, I find there to be a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I need a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
Move to approve. Second.
It has been properly moved in second. Any questions? If none, all in favor, show of hands. None opposed. Thank you. Next, we go to our legislation portion of the agenda, and it's ordinance 2025.001 for first reading. The purpose of this ordinance is to establish policies, regulations, and standards for the management of public trees within the city limits. Public tree management shall include, but not be limited to, tree establishment, maintenance, protection, and removal. Can I get a motion?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved in second. Any questions or discussion, council?
With this ordinance here, could you explain a little bit more? What's the process in the city gonna have the workers tending to these trees, or if it's gonna be a private company going out tending to these trees?
No, not necessarily.
Purchasing these trees, or?
No. We actually have Ms. Lisa Jones here that can speak more on that, on the ordinance. Go ahead. I think it's on. Is it on, Jonathan? There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my apologies. I tend to think my voice carries. The policies regarding public trees will have an advisory council, the tree board, constituted under this ordinance that will make recommendations to the city in regards to how we will handle any issues related to public trees. There is nothing in the tree ordinance that says how those trees will be maintained or how the city's public tree canopy will be maintained. We're seeking first guidance and support from the tree board. Then, of course, our usual procedures would apply in terms of how that kind of work could be taken care of.
Okay, now, see, under administration, it says, the last word in the paragraph, last sentence. The word shall, as used in this ordinance, is mandatory and not merely directory. And at the beginning, it says the city administrator would be, or his designee, his or her designee, should have the, shall be responsible for the administration, provisions, administration and of all, underline, all provisions of this ordinance for public tree management.
What I can tell you is the text of this tree ordinance is the former tree ordinance. So only thing we changed in the text of this tree ordinance is particular advisory documents related to South Carolina Forest Forestry Commission and professional arborists. That said, if there is anything in this text that you do not wish to go with, certainly, I don't personally have any issues with it. I don't think anybody has any issues with it who's working with the trees. And this would be the appropriate place to try to make any of those kind of amendments.
Okay, well, I had a few people call and ask me where the trees are coming from.
The trees that we are getting from Trees for SC are purchased through the South Carolina Forestry Commission grant. The Green Infrastructure Center is acquiring them. There are a couple of nurseries that they use for supplies. They also use Clemson Extension Service. So I would say it varies depending upon the trees that they're getting and when they're getting them. Our next planting is next month in the Martha Law neighborhood. We also are planning to plant some on school grounds. The trees, I think for the school are on order. I think for Martha Law neighborhood, we have a little bit more time in order for people to make their requests, and then we'll kind of proceed from there. But I can find out the specific nurseries that are used, but I will have to get in touch with the Green Infrastructure Center for that information.
Okay.
One more question I have. How big is the tree, how big are the trees going?
All the
particularly
trees.
grow? So.
It varies depending upon what particular trees are planted. We are working with 3 arborists on the project, one from the Green Infrastructure Center, one from the South Carolina Forestry Commission, and one from Moore Farms as our special consultant. First thing that they do is make a determination about the location and the appropriateness of trees and what kind of trees for that area. Critical, they want indigenous trees. Next, of course, they want to make sure that these are trees that grow according to the use of that particular property at the time. They want to make sure not to create any kind of hazards or challenges. So they have procured and distributed, and at this point, I would say I don't think we've installed really any trees, but we have some that really I would probably, in my layperson's knowledge, I'd probably call a bush more than a tree. And then some of them grow as high as 30 feet. Those are the shade trees. So it varies depending upon the particular tree. If there's any particular tree that we have a question about, I'm certainly happy to get the expert's opinion. And I would not remotely suggest that I am an expert.
Yeah, because the reason why I ask is once they start growing and,
Maintenance.
leaves start falling, maintenance, where they plant the trees, if they plant it at an entranceway of anywhere, someone may can't see or something like that. That's the reason why I asked.
Totally understand. I think the initial intention would be, and actually, the planting that we are doing is all on private property right now, or the school. And so we're consulting with the school district for the planting and their expectations and needs on their property. And then private landowners, they request what they request and they install it where they install it. And they also maintain it where they maintain it. The tree ordinance speaks predominantly to public trees, of which we have planted, and I don't know that we have achieved a plan for planting additional public trees. At this point, we haven't planted any as part of this project.
Ms. Lisa,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm also concerned about, as far as the roots of the trees,
Mm-hmm.
with the underground, sidewalks and also the piping and stuff like that, just, with our sewer system.
Sure.
Yeah, so I'm concerned about that. I don't know if you have any information on that.
What I can tell you is, you're talking about areas where there's typically an SCDOT easement. The SCDOT has very extensive regulations about what can or cannot be planted in those areas. I guess I would add again, we haven't made any determination about planting any public trees as part of this project. If we get to a place where we want to recommend that, we would certainly bring that to council for any kind of guidance or feedback. At this point, our expectation is with the Trees for SC program that we will augment the city's tree canopy predominantly through planting on private property. Now, what that does for any kind of utility lines or whatever, I'm not at all clear.
Yeah, but see, if Ms. Buffy and Ms. Wilhelmina probably remember, some years ago, they planted trees down 52 on the south side. And people was complaining about
Blind spots.
blind spots, what they were seeing. The city workers had to go down through there, trim the trees up. And we had another company, you know, when they were doing beautification and everything, they came and planted trees. And I just was wondering if the city workers was gonna be out there doing the maintenance work.
At this point, the city will help install the trees on school grounds. Other than that, they're not gonna be involved in the installation of any trees at this point. If there is a decision to try to pursue planting public trees, I will bring that to administration, who will bring that to council for discussion and feedback. I think a lot of the people who are involved in the Trees for SC process are familiar with some of the issues related to the Highway 52 trees, and they didn't want to repeat that, and that's why we targeted predominantly private lots for planting.
Quick question. Right now, and I'm looking at the tree board, because there's gonna be a board that has to be,
Different.
put together by council, looks like. Excuse me, so with that, will we now have to, start putting in the ad, because I know that it's been questions about who is gonna be on the board, you know, for how many years and all that stuff, so do we need to start implementing that now?
We've solicited applications for the
Okay.
tree board,
Yeah, okay.
and we actually got what we consider to be a sufficient number to explore whether or not we would make appointments, or I should say, city council would make appointments from amongst those applicants.
And when did that,
We did that at our tree giveaway,
Okay.
because those were people who expressed an interest in trees.
Okay.
How many board members will there be?
The ordinance, I think, calls for five. We
That's
had,
right, that's right, okay.
I believe, 10 or 12 applicants. I actually thought we might be wise to have a larger tree board, just to make sure that we would always have a quorum, but we decided to be expeditious, to really not change the old tree ordinance. That said, if there are concerns with the language of the tree ordinance, this is the proper place to discuss and change. And I don't have any input to offer other than this is the place to get it changed.
I did have a few concerns, mainly concerned with the utility line clearance pruning. I just felt like the language was maybe a little too restrictive. It doesn't give enough leeway in case of emergency situations, because it says the arborist must be there. So I did come up with a few changes with the topping restrictions, utility line clearance pruning, the tree protection fencing, and then the tree removal permit requirements. Not major
Sure.
changes, but just.
Oh, totally understand. I guess I don't know what the process would be for doing this, because I'm not an expert on that either. Very useful. But certainly, whatever guidance council can offer in regards to editing the ordinance to make it what we want it to say, we're happy to do that.
I think that's just how I feel with how some of this is worded. If it's all right with the rest of the council and the mayor, we come back to this, table it, and we come back to it where we all can put our input in, what we wanna see. Cause some of it, not ridiculous, but, it's kind of tied the city into it, you get what I'm saying?
Sure.
And if y'all don't have a board, I would like for the board to be able to have their own, come work and maintain the trees, you know what I'm saying?
I understand. What I can do just to kind of facilitate getting the ordinance in the shape that you guys would like it to be in is, I have the text that was submitted for your documentation today. I'll send it to everybody with instructions to give me whatever edits you want to make. If they're contradictory edits, then obviously there have to be discussions, but if everybody has something that they want to say as far as the document, changing the document goes, I can try to make those additions and then we can reconsider it as you wish.
And I'd like to take into account too, going back to what Jason said earlier, who's going to maintain the trees and, the financial impact to the cities, and what it's already said is no financial impact.
But they'll be out there maybe proving, they'll be out there planting the tree, and that's still financial tool for the city.
If the tree board were to make a recommendation to the city council, and the city council were to say, we want to plant a tree, then yes. Now, the tree board may make recommendations to the city council about how to maintain the city's public trees, and then city council will make the determination about, and should, and that's how the document should read, and if it doesn't read that way, then we need to change it. But city council would make the determination about what we would do and how we would pay for it. Of course, my responsibility as grant writer is to try to find ways that we pay for as little as possible, and what I can tell you is, we have a good relationship with, South Carolina Forestry Commission, and a number of funding sources. And actually, I was hoping to be able to tell you that we got a grant to help with tree maintenance, but I still haven't heard from that one. We did secure something last week, another grant from South Carolina Forestry Commission. And that one is related to planting a food forest, but we'll tell you a little bit more about that when we're ready to make that announcement.
But I wish you the best of luck with that for the good future. And that sounds like a great idea, a great plan that you working on.
And I think,
My question
I think we
is-
might want to keep in consideration, but keep in mind, this is going to be extra or additional work for once the establishment of the trees. Well, the private residences, of course, will be responsible for maintenance and upkeep of their trees. But for the city workers, this is going to be additional work for them. And don't want it to overwhelm them. And
Absolutely.
so we need to think about possible increases they'll be getting, because we're adding more to them. And also, the codes enforcer, I wish we'd become more proactive in enforcing the codes when it comes to these blighted properties, trees, or what have you in the city. And now is the time, because grass is greening up, growing, and before we know it, these vacant lots and blight will have overtaken. So we need to get with the codes enforcer and maybe go through our district and provide a list of enforcements that the codes enforcer need to be proactive on. So I would, ask that we all think about that, because it's really needed.
I can respond to that a little bit to say that the blighted properties are typically public property, or not public properties, are private properties, so those landowners, whether they be absent or not, are legally responsible for that. When I started with the city, we were in the ending stages of our Southwest Demolition Grant with CDBG. We have not closed it out, FYI, that's their fault, not mine. And once, and then you'll love me saying that, please don't put this on that. But it's true, they have to do some closeout procedures with us, and that we've finished that particular grant. That will afford us the opportunity to seek additional funding through CDBG to address other blighted properties. And it's my understanding, the first application covered 38 properties, of which we did 18. So we did roughly half of the identified blighted properties. So we know that there are more properties, and when we are eligible for those funds, that would certainly be something that we would talk about doing again. There are not a whole lot of other funding opportunities relative to that kind of project. And that's unfortunate. We have sought some healthcare, South Carolina Housing Trust dollars to do repairs. And we are waiting to hear if we will secure those funds. Now that, if the property is blighted, that may not be sufficient to address the issues. But for residents who have a repair need, the housing trust dollars may help them with the repairs that they need.
What can we possibly do if there's no further funding right now for that, for grants for those, blighted houses? Is there anything as a city that we could do to like put some stiffness on put some fines out for these people?
I can't speak to what the city ordinances say, but that's certainly where fines would be spoken. And then there's a legal process to go through to assess those fines. And I can say, as somebody who worked in the criminal justice system, assessing a fine and collecting a fine are not the same thing.
If I
To my
remember,
concern, you ever get grant money for existing trees that, maybe hazard to your home. And this is the driveway, I had a tree cut down probably about 15 years. And then I just put a sidewalk up, and then I got plumbing problem now because you see, the roots is down in there and it's blocking, my sewage and stuff like that. And I just put a new driveway in my property, and they saying the old tree. I said, that long ago? They said the tree is coming up through that.
Inundation is an issue related to trees and where they are planted and what is around the area. When it's something that's happened quite a while ago, it becomes even more complicated because you may not always know. The grant that I sought to try to provide a tree maintenance team for the city also spoke to that. It provided the opportunity for private residents to get repairs, not repairs related to their trees, but to get their private trees maintained. I actually thought we had a good chance because they reached out to us pretty quickly about our application. But I haven't heard anything since then. I haven't heard anything at all that the grant's been awarded or not been awarded. Because the funds are through the Inflation Reduction Act. Some of those funds are being awarded and some of those funds are sort of being whatever. I'm not really sure what the legal terminology for that is, but they're not being awarded, frozen, for lack of a better way to put it. So, and of course, there's no guarantee we would have gotten that money anyway, but that is a project that I am interested in making sure that we are able to provide support for both the public and private trees in the city.
Well, thank you.
Based on Councilman Brown, for discussion, probably Councilman Brown, you make a motion to table, that'll supersede the motion and second to approve. So a motion to table, second vote, and then yes, if Ms. Lisa can share the language with y'all can edit, bring back next meeting for first reading.
Somebody can second your motion? I second.
It has been properly moved and second
To table.
to table. It been properly moved to table and second. No other discussions. All in favor? Show of hands. None opposed. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lisa. Next on our agenda, we have executive session pursuant to the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act, Sections 30-4-70A1-2, for the discussion of personnel, employment, compensation, or appointments, and the receipt of legal advice. I need a motion to go into executive session, please.
Second?
It has been properly moved in second. All in favor, show of hands. Thank you.